Welcome back, Tribe. Have one here from MSNBC. The kids are not okay. The nightmare around modern dating. I'm just curious what mainstream media has to say.
Week on Morning Mika, the kids, and actually adults too, are not okay.
Percy?
Yeah.
Wait, your name's Percy?
Yeah.
Percy? Sorry. Continue. Percy?
Cell phones are the problem.
Anymore?
That was Jennifer Lawrence in a scene from No Hard Feelings, finding a bunch of teens and 20-somethings glued to their phones at a house party. It underscores a troubling reality right now. A growing number of younger Americans aren't dating. They're not hanging out. And no, they're not even hooking up. For so many women who want to date men, dating has become a total nightmare. And there are a number of reasons why.
Why?
I'm Mika Brzezinski here with Simone Sanders Townsend, Huma Abedin, and Jen Psaki.
Yes, mainstream narrative pushers, tyranny supporters, propaganda conspirers. Look at them all. And they're going to tell us about how men are bad. I bet you. Men need to step it up. We've got 4 women here. Let's find out.
I have heard from a lot of young women who want to date young men that there are none.
Oh,
There are no guys.
There we
They're
go.
trying to connect. They often use dating apps, but find a total lack of connection. And it seems that the men they are meeting don't really share the same priorities.
it's
If they
men's
show
fault.
up.
Wow.
Women especially.
Dude, it starts off with blaming men. We're not even building the argument yet with the big reveal of it might be the men. It's just straight into where the men at.
Especially career-driven women say the men
Newsflash, you raised them in your single mother, strong, independent boss babe, living on daddy government's teat household. You created this entire generation.
they're meeting are more interested in sex and not looking for a deeper connection.
I wonder why.
And that it's becoming more and more of a problem. So what's changing? Because not that long ago, people used to meet each other through work, let's be honest, or through friends, maybe at a bar or in a college campus. And it gave people a
Patriarchy.
chance to actually learn.
Men are evil. Patriarchy. Men ain't shit. I'm the table. What are men good for? Toxic masculinity. An umbrella term to describe anything traditionally masculine. Effeminize all men. Oops. Looks like we've transformed men into the very thing we don't like. Feminine, emotional, unstable men. Wow. Congratulations. The world you built, you now have to live in it, and you don't like it.
Learn about each other, to break through the filters, to demonstrate kindness and show commitment and values, to actually
Look at that.
earn affection.
You see the shame? You see all the hoops they want you to jump through? Do you see how they're manipulating and propagandizing the next generation of women? They're all going to listen to this and go, yeah, men are the problem. What's wrong with men? Never introspective. Never what I could do to be a better woman. What I could do to attract a better quality man. Why is it that I always go for the bums, the dusties, the pookies, the chads, the tyrones, getting pumped and dumped, casually hooking up with guys, having my guts rearranged and being left alone to cry my pillow at night? Not one single introspective question. All right.
But today, so many people are living life through a screen. They're not going out nearly as much, not to church, not to movies, or even to the office. Opportunities to fall in love are falling by the wayside, meaning people are making decisions by swiping left on their smartphones rather than truly.
And you know, when you look at this through a red pill lens, what gender is most likely to think this way? There's a sickness where we don't see people as people because of the apps. We always think that there's something better out there. Who are the ones that have infinite choices on the app, so much so that they don't even have to pay for them? Who's the ones that are swiping on the top 5 percentile of men and only differentiating by like, I want the doctor, the lawyer, the guy in the executive suite, the multi-millionaire football player, the blah, blah, blah. And they're just sick with the choices they have, assuming they're pretty, of course. Doesn't that seem like a quote directly aimed at women? But of course, it's the men's fault. Men just don't want to settle down. Men just, gaslighting. It's gaslighting, bro.
Learning to connect. The highs, the lows, the disappointments, all of that stuff. It's all part of the process.
Go on.
And it's affecting mental health too. According to a recent study of people over the age of 18, those who used swipe-based dating apps experienced significantly higher rates of psychological distress, anxiety, and depression. Another study showed a link between using dating apps and experiencing loneliness, dissatisfaction with life, and this is a big one, a feeling of exclusion from the world, feeling so left out.
Oh,
And when
poor
women do go to coffee shops, what we're hearing is that they try, or to a club or the grocery store, or anything where they get out and interact with people, they say the men that they want to meet just don't share their ideals.
Oh.
It's partly because so many young men are spending their lives
Here we go.
also logged in, overly influenced by a flood of whatever you can find online, porn.
Beautiful. That says so many guys she meets suffer what she calls porn brain. They prize performative masculinity over actual connection. So can we just reverse this on them and go, you suffer from social media brain, from TikTok brain, and you prize superficial lifestyles over deep, meaningful bonds.
Video games, toxic masculinity.
Oh, there it is.
Who needs the real thing when you can get something better, and I put that in quotes, by scrolling? Here's what Scott Galloway, professor of marketing at NYU, told us on Morning Joe about some of the reasons why men are becoming like this.
I think you have the most talented, well-resourced people in the world and companies trying to convince a young man that he can have a reasonable facsimile of life in his basement behind a screen. You don't need friends. Go on Reddit or Discord. You don't need to get a job. Go on Robinhood or Coinbase and trade crypto and stocks. You don't need to go through the rejection and the expense and the humiliation and working out and having a plan and humor and showering to get a romantic relationship. You have YouPorn. So we have an entire generation, especially of young men, who are out home sequestering from society and missing out on what it means. There's a reason romantic comedies are 2 hours and not 15 minutes. True victory in life is hard. Going out, meeting someone, finding mentors, finding mates, that stuff is hard, but that's what real victory in real life is like. And because a lot of men feel rejected on dating app.
Yeah, and society took away men's spaces. We no longer have mentors because it's seen as being creepy to have an older man mentor you when you're young. There's stories of grandfathers being arrested at the park with their grandchildren simply because it's a man in a kid's park and he looks creepy when he's just there babysitting his grandchild. Society has completely twisted what it means to be a man. Yes, it's more difficult to be a man today than it's ever been because your expectations are constantly shifting based on what the other side is barking down your throat to do. And he's saying, work hard, go through challenges. Life is all about perseverance and trials and tribulations. For what? At the end of the tunnel, a fucking ogre that's 80 pounds overweight, 2 kids by 2 different baby daddies. I know that's an exaggeration, but look at what the quality of the women are. Women used to inspire men. They used to be their muses. A man would break his back for a nice, feminine, a virgin woman. If that was your thing or not, it doesn't matter. Look at the quality, man. What inspires a man to break his back and do better today when the end of the tunnel looks like that? Yes, let me go through all this hard work so I could end up married to a blood-sucking harpy that's going to wreck me in the courts at any moment's notice because the government backs her, not me. She's not feminine in the slightest. She doesn't know how to cook. She doesn't know how to clean. All she does is yell and be combative, and I need to break my back for this? That sounds like a raw deal. Men are saying, I'm good then. I'll go my own way or go overseas and find someone truly feminine.
The number of jobs that are accessible to them has gone down.
Yep.
You have essentially a group of men who are saying, I want a low-risk entry into life. And they go down a rabbit hole. When they don't have social connections, and they don't get out, and they don't have the prospect of a romantic relationship, they're more prone to conspiracy theory. They're more prone to misogynistic content. They're less likely to believe in climate change. And some become really bad citizens. We are producing too many of the most dangerous person in the world, and that is a young, broke, and lonely young man.
Feminine.
Wow.
Feminine. And you know who produces most of these men? Single mother households. He forgets to mention that part because his little MSNBC stint and his book selling bullshit would all go away. So I don't like some of these guys in the mainstream. He's pushing out his book and his products, what it is. Climate change, misogyny. Yeah, dude, totally. We're going down the conspiracy theory rabbit holes after they shipped all our jobs overseas to Chinese people and whoever else.
Professor Galloway pointed out 1 in 3 relationships used to begin at work. Now young people are not going into the office as often. And if you are a young man at work, are you more or less inclined to express some sort of romantic interest in a potential partner now than you were 40 years ago? The answer is clearly no. By the way, men and women have been told in many places that if you have feelings for someone at work, you have to go to HR first. That'll kill the moment. And I get why that's the policy. I get how we got here. Having said that, the unforeseen consequences of the Me Too movement, or of Me Too in general, and the problems that began the movement, that's a show we need to do at some point. And we have to have a really honest conversation about that. But that's not this show. I'm just saying having to go to HR is kind of a hard start. Jen, why don't you start? What are the biggest concerns you have here?
Yeah, look, Mika, first of all, I met my husband at work at the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. He asked me out over email and brought me ice cream. It was a much more traditional way of meeting someone. Look, I think the biggest concern I have here is the mental health impact on young people. And we've seen that in statistics and a ton of reporting about the disconnect. And you just went over a fair amount of it for men, certainly, and also for women. And I just think anecdotally of talking to a lot of women I work with, who I have the pleasure of working with on my team, they, men and women have been wanting to just have sex for decades, right? That's not new. I think they're still probably they're hooking up still, right? But it's more about that deeper connection. And as Scott said, relationships are work. Emotional connections are work, whether it's a friendship, whether it's a boyfriend, a girlfriend, whatever it may be, or a mentor relationship. And there's such a cotton candy aspect of the world we're living in right now. That's also a fantasy world, right? You mentioned porn. That's, of course, on the sex side, but it's also just how people portray themselves on social media. It's not connected to the difficulty and the struggle that often you have to go through in order to have the most rewarding relationship, the most rewarding friendships, the most rewarding mentorships. And the mental health impact is the biggest concern.
Yeah, a concern for who? Women using social media. They're the worst off. Why can't they just say, for women? Women, we need to be becoming more feminine. We need to do better. We need to maybe take some advice from our great-grandmothers who have been married and lifelong and successful with multiple kids, no issues. How about we start asking the women that are in these successful relationships and marriages what they're doing right to keep their men? How about we take a step back from this female empowerment, strong boss babe mentality that's being pushed on every woman who doesn't even want it to be pushed on them? How about we give women the choice that if you wanted to be a stay-at-home mother, if you wanted to be feminine and more traditional, here's how you do it. Here's what you do. Why is it that their only option in this consumerist, corporate, socialist society we're living in is go into your cubicle, make some money at the expense of your own personal happiness? By all means, working as a corporate slave is the only way you can derive happiness in this mediocre existence you call life. It's not kids. It's not family. It's not a husband. It's not turning your house into a home. It's not nesting. It's not watching your legacy grow. It's crunching the numbers for your boss, Ted, while he screams down your throat that these invoices are due by Friday. The client needs them now. And you won't get compensated for your overtime because you're a toad on salary and they get to abuse all your work hours. So you're putting in 60 hours this week. It's been a really heavy week at work today. And you get paid the same bullshit you've been getting paid. Congratulations. I hope the $60K a year was worth your entire existence.
Because connection is what makes life joyful. And that to me is what I worry about the most.
Yeah, Simone, Americans are more lonely and isolated than ever. There's data on this. And what do you make of Professor Galloway's remarks on Morning Joe that we're producing too many of the most dangerous people in the world, namely young, broken, lonely men?
There we go.
Mika, I thought that a lot of Professor Galloway's comments were interesting. I listened to the whole segment twice yesterday because, one, I think that people are going out. And also, I don't think that I didn't meet my husband at work. I actually met my husband going out. I was at an event. After the event, some folks introduced, at the time, he was what was known in Washington, D.C. as the Nightmare. And some folks that I know asked me, oh, do you know the Nightmare? I said, I've heard of him. I do not know him. I've never had the pleasure. And that was I like to say we've been dating ever since. I think he might take issue with my timeline. So I would argue that people are going out in different social settings, but I also think the apps, for example, are not terrible. One of my best girlfriends met her husband on the apps. You know, I know a lot of people who are meeting folks on the apps, and it is opening up, frankly, the world of the dating.
You see how they're talking, opening up the world of the dating pool for women, because women are selecting a top percentile man. The 95% rule that they have on dating apps, only 5% of men are actually matching and successfully dating. Of the 95%, only 2% are actually going on dates. That's how skewed the statistics have become. 95% of men get swiped left by women. Of the 5%, only 2 of those percentages go on successful dates and meeting somebody. Do you understand how insane that sounds to say out loud? Do you understand that her perspective is completely warped? That she can't possibly live in a man's shoes just imagining what it's like for the average dude to get on a dating app and not have a single fucking match for months. Do you know how insane that sounds? Because some 4'8" ogre, 300 pounds, diabetic, got molasses in her blood, is saying I deserve a 6'10", 30-pack multi-trillionaire. Why do you think so much of this content is exploding? Dude, everybody's dealing with this shit is absolutely mind-blowing. And we got mainstream media being like, Joe is sharp as a tack. Ha! Men are the problem. Ha! Incels everywhere. Ha! I'm using dating apps and they're just fine. My girlfriend met her husband on there. Ha ha ha! It's a you problem, not a me problem. This shit, the disconnect between the mainstream and what's going on in the average person's life, whether it's from politics, whether it's from dating, whether it's jobs, finance, retirement, everything is so twisted. It's disgusting. It's turned the average person off completely from all this mainstream bullshit. This is why nobody pays attention to MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, any of these shits. You're watching a podcast or a channel like this and they get more views than these shit cable, publicly funded, corrupted by the government, influence peddling for corporation program. Crazy. Go on, boss babes. Tell me more how men are the problem.
Pool bigger than just who comes to your neighborhood bar or who you might see in the office. And so I think that is a good thing. Look, I think about these lonely, broke, dangerous men. I don't really know, Mika. I'm not sold on the lonely, broke, and dangerous men. I think that we are producing a generation of younger people who do not have hustle and drive.
You're lazy.
And the lack of hustle and drive, one is where I do agree with Professor Galloway. And
you're lazy, bro. You just don't want to hustle hard enough. Yes, there's snowflakes in society. There always has been for every generation, but it's not the fact that we shift most of the manufacturing and all the factory jobs your grandpappy used to have overseas to Chinamen, Indian dudes, and Southeast Asia and wherever else is the cheapest to maximize corporate profits so Bob, the CEO, could get his 10th yacht and his 11th private jet. That's not the issue here, you lazy bum. You're not pulling yourself up by your bootstraps and figuring it out how to make money in this economy. There's jobs everywhere as they sit behind their gold-plated gates and ivory towers telling you, do better, bro, when they're making millions peddling influence. 10% to the big guy. What a clown show, dude. I'm not convinced these dusties aren't working hard enough. Meanwhile, the only job available is like McDonald's. Yeah, dude, totally going to move up in the corporate world there or do well. Oh, wait, I want to get into college. Oh, can't afford it. My grades were good. Oh, but I don't have something in between my legs to push me through. Oh, I graduate college and I do well and I'm applying for a job. Oh, the company needs more women because diversity and inclusion, bro. There was just an article, a video I was seeing the other day about some Asian kid with like a damn near perfect GPA, extra credentials, all this shit, after school curriculars. Like he had the perfect application. No colleges are accepting him because of the reverse racism. It's just racism because so many Asian kids are living in households where the parents are hard on them and make them learn and aspire for them to be dentists, lawyers, doctors, all this shit, engineers, and bust their ass and tell them, get home early, do your damn homework, then study it again. Make sure you don't come home with nothing less than a 100% on every test and do these extracurriculars and learn to play the piano and the violin. And Indian kids too. Asians, Southeast Asians, East Asians and Indians, producing smart as hell childhoods. And they have some of the highest incomes for families in the United States. And guess what? You could have your kid do so well, and just because your group is succeeding and nobody else is asking, well, why is this particular group doing so goddamn well? Shouldn't we copy a little bit of what they're doing? Nope. Instead, we're going to punish the children. Can't let you into college, bro. Why? Oh, we have something called diversity and inclusion. We got to introduce more of these marginalized peoples instead of rewarding the bright ones in society that busted their ass and did everything right. We got to pretend to fix the problem. Let's invite people who don't deserve to be here because they had a shittier start. Instead of investing in their communities, instead of giving them opportunities to learn, we're just going to push them through the door willy-nilly, not by merit, but just by placing them in a box, disenfranchised. Wow. Society just crumbling from all directions.
That, there's a younger generation of people who would rather be home than go out and socialize.
Right.
But I think the idea that folks are not going out, that folks are not socializing is not true. More so, I think it's that the pool of men that women would like to date is smaller. There's more women than men. It has always been that way. When I moved to Washington, D.C., that's what everyone said. It's like, for every one guy, there's 10 women that want to date him. So there's that.
Yeah. Well, I see the numbers that you're talking about. I really connect with your reticence about the lonely, broken, dangerous. I guess the inference that you have to have a woman to fix that. Like, you can fix that yourself. And not be, I hear you about personal responsibility for sure. But I'm seeing in my world and hearing from a lot of young people who work with me, who work for me, who just, they don't go out as much. There's like nowhere to go, or no one to go with, or it's the same old every time. And they're on the phones so much. And whom I'm wondering, given the consequences of loneliness and isolation from a policy perspective, because the Surgeon General recently declared it, the loneliness is an epidemic. Is there an obligation on the part of our government or policies to address some of these growing social disconnects that are happening in our country?
Start treating men like men. Let boys be boys. Start boys programs. Where is shop class gone? Why can't boys have the Boy Scouts anymore? Why was it taken from them and had to include women? Why have you taken away mentorship program? Whatever happened to creating and opening and keeping a lane for men to become well, upstanding, positive benefits to society? Why are we seen as defective? Why are we pushing women at the expense of men instead of bringing them up to our level and celebrating our differences? I'm wondering. Until government addresses that problem, this shit will keep getting worse.
So, I mean, I agree with so much. My mind is just spinning with thoughts hearing all three of you. And I'm glad you referenced the Surgeon General, because the four of us talk about this a lot, that we are pioneers. We're raising a generation, surrounded by technology that we just didn't have access to growing up. And we're still seeing the short and long-term impact of that. I love that you just mentioned the Surgeon General report. We talk about it in the context of just this. We're talking about it.
Yeah.
When you look at things like smoking, it's not that we think people are going to quit smoking or stop using tobacco, but when you buy a cigarette, it will say there's a warning that this is bad for your health. I was at an office meeting the other day and I saw a box saying, here's, if you need Narcan, it's, it's in this lockbox, get help. It's not that we think people are going to stop using drugs and that there might never be an overdose again. We are aware of it. We have a solution to it. And this is all part of public policy.
Blah, blah, blah. Comments. Let's see. Dating someone at work is a very bad idea. If it doesn't work out, it causes a lot of other issues. Exactly. Don't shit where you eat. Number one rule for men, do not get with women you work with. It will blow up in your face and cost you everything you've ever worked for. Proceed at your own risk. 4 women telling all the men what's wrong with them. Told you. Young people aren't going out because it's so apocalyptically expensive just to survive. That's doing literally anything extra worth the financial burden. People aren't hustling because we've become aware that there's no reward at the end of the struggle anymore. Like I told you earlier, success is immobile in a world where established mega corporations control everything from industry to the Supreme Court. No young men at the table to discuss why this is happening? ? The panel is dangerously delusional. Staying home and finding pleasure in that is called peace, not rut. Young people are priced out of society. Their lack of hustle and drive stems from the lack of societal reward for such behavior. Exactly. The American dream is dead. How many times have they told us the American dream is dying? The American dream is dead. Upward social mobility has been crushed. Young people can't afford homes. Young people can hardly afford to rent, hardly pay for groceries. How the hell do you expect people to date and do all these extracurricular activities that cost money when they can hardly survive? Yeah, bro, let me work hard for a dream that's passed like 100 years ago. Awesome. The panel was just horrible. Sorry, but none of them are in the age range affected by this. They are older and have all been or are currently married. Wrong demographic. Our phones are sort of paid for, but going out is too expensive. People are struggling to pay student loans and really high rent. So we are working more and too broke to go out and socialize. Using your own cell doesn't cost extra. When going out costs at least $100 to do anything, most Americans can't cover a $300 emergency. Yeah, it's all about phones. Nailed it again. Bunch of married women talking about dating. This is hilarious. Downward mobility is the problem. No one's doing anything about that. Can old people just not talk about this, please? It's creepy. Calling men of today young, broke, and lonely is not going to make them start dating you more, ladies. Yeah. Sigh, criticism of men without actually talking to any of them is not a legitimate form of discourse. And look, here's someone else just aware of these concepts. Dating apps are a nightmare for men. They only work for the top 5%. The rest either get crumbs or nothing at all. It's demoralizing. I am an SWM with a high-paying job, reasonably attractive, healthy, and fit, have my life together, and the apps made me feel worthless. 99% of the women are after 5% of men there. Waste of time. We've covered dating apps plenty of times for you to know. It's the classic hook, line, and sinker. They show you a few good profiles, then nothing but cave trolls. Then the algorithm will know what you like, lock away all the good matches, force you behind paywalls and subscriptions, continuously suck money from you like a leech without ever giving you what you want, a decent connection. And that's what they're designed to do. That's their profit incentive. Keeping you lonely keeps them rich. And that's essentially the society we're living in today, keeping you as emotionally damaged and dependent on the system as possible while everything around you crumbles more and more. Let me know what you guys think. See you on the next one. Oh, and if you know more mainstream coverages like this around dating, relationships, marriage, cultural stuff, please send it to me. I love covering stuff like this.